So now we're on to chapter 2 of Legacy, book 1. So this, where we left off, we were talking about Exion going to visit his mother's grave, and then he encounters the vagrant Drake, and of course the guard gets involved, tries to break him up, but they pretty much, this is where they bond right now. And so this is a part in the story where you really get some backstory and character development on Exion. So first off, we learn the name of his mother. My bad, that's a little bit thick. Her name is Meridia, and so pretty much how this dialogue happens is Drake is asking, who's his mother and all that, and so this is where, you have a typical interaction between two children that are roughly around the ages of 8 to 10. They're very forthcoming about things, and they're very open to talk about this. And so that's where Exion talks about his mother and how she died. And then this is also going to explain Exchange Day. So again, the top and the importance of Exchange Day is it's a holiday to remember the idea of like the exchange of life. Is that the mother died and Exion lived. But instead of it being like a tragic birth accident where she died during childbirth, it was rather actually a murder. So, I previously talked about Mercer, the dad, and how he led the war against the group called the Sons of Perdition. So here we have a little bit of backstory to see really what Mercer was. So in his fight against the Sons of Perdition, they were all eliminated except for their leader, who was just called the Dark Heir. In the final moment, and in the final conflict, the Dark Heir wasn't there, and the name, of course, is not actually his name. That's really what's just given to him. And Mercer knows this because after the final battle, he knew for a fact the leader wasn't found and killed. And so he knew that the leader must have went into hiding somehow. And it wasn't until... and so that's when Mercer and Sophus... This is where Sophus comes into the picture. They team up and they hunt down the Dark Mages together. And their whole goal is they're trying to get the Dark Heir and any deserters so that all the Sons of Perdition are completely eliminated. Of course, they fail because the mother, during the night after she gave birth to Exion, was murdered by a mage using dark magic. And the thing is whenever a person's killed with dark magic, their body shows the obvious sign of it. Is they have pale skin, black veins. So it's like they just got injected with some kind of disease. So pale skin, black veins, black eyes, and so on. So she was murdered with all the telltale signs of being killed by dark magic. And at this point, Mercer and Sophus believed that they killed all the Sons of Perdition, but of course they never found anyone that they believed to be the leader, the Dark Heir. So they believe that it was the Dark Heir. So he becomes more of like this mystery guy. So he's this mystery figure. He's unknown. We don't even know if it's a man. And his existence is even speculative. So that means it's only assumed that there was a leader that hasn't been killed, and that leader is the one that killed Meridia in order to get revenge on Mercer. And so as the story begins, Mercer still hasn't really given up on this. I'd say that he is definitely more distracted with the duties of being a king and so on, that he can't just go on active witch hunts searching for this Dark Heir. But it is acknowledged that she was murdered in cold blood, and so it's been something that's always been bothering Exion. And of course, this isn't all explained in the dialogue to Drake. All Exion will say is that the Dark Heir killed his mother, and that's the purpose of Exchange Day, is rather than mourning the death of Meridia, they also want to celebrate the life of Exion. So it's like Veterans Day, when you mourn those that have died, but then you are also grateful for those that are alive. So then, of course, this is when Drake can go into his own backstory. And again, these are children we're talking about, and children are very, forthcoming. And so this is when Drake, can talk about the reasons why he's an orphan and all that. And pretty much it ties into the fact that his parents were, he assumes, of course, all this because he's too young. Because again, he's so young, he didn't even know his own name. And his nickname was given because, he has a dragon. So his name is Drake. And, using his own knowledge of things, he assumes that his parents were dragon riders. And the importance of the four-winged wyvern. So this is obviously not a good representation of the four-winged wyvern, but this is just to give you an idea, of course, of what they look like. So very long tails, 4 very strong wings that overlap on top of each other. And then, of course, there's the limbs underneath it. But this special dragon, or wyvern, I should say. No, let's just call them dragons, because wyverns are a specific breed, and people will correct me on that. So this breed is called the Skytop dragon. And the Skytop dragons are considered the rarest. They're also the largest and most fearsome. But of course, with that, that's because they're found on top of this place called the Skytop Pillars, and so on. And so it's assumed that Drake's parents died trying to get the egg, and he ended up with the egg, and that's all he knows. And so it's assumed that he was taken care of by another relative and such. So that's a little bit of backstory on those two. So now let's fast forward. So pretty much what Exion does is he convinces the knight to let Drake back into the quarters. And so now, here you have, a big dinner table and stuff going on. So right as Drake enters, Mercer, let's say Mercer's right here. So that's Mercer. And then here we're going to have Sophis. I should probably reduce the font. And then there's going to be Nolus. And then here you have, well, that's supposed to be a child. And so remember the seating arrangement. It's pretty important that you see how there's like a distance between Mercer and his own son. And why did that was my bad. I colored in the head rather than the body of Exion. So the reason why I color in Exion is because he's the main character, obviously, so it's kind of good to know where he is. And then, of course, I'll just use simple colors to show the difference between the characters. So you got Sophis, which is a gray, Mercer, because he's blonde, I'll give him yellow, and then you got Nolus, let's make him green. So these are the important characters right now. That soldier is actually going to be sort of important, and then, remember, sort of. So here we go. We have some conversation between Mercer and Nolus. They're just talking about good old times. Again, this is supposed to be exposition, and this is supposed to establish... This is supposed to be the first scene that Nolus is introduced. So this is supposed to establish the brotherhood and the fact that Nolus is his uncle. So here we go. You have Nolus not only chatting up with Mercer, but he's also talking to Exion at the same time, asking him questions about, who's your friend and all that, and Mercer's, of course, agreeing. But this whole time, Sophis being, the stick in the mud that he is, he just kind of stays out of it. He's like, I don't want to do it, so he's pretty silent. Let's just give him some ellipses. And, of course, since Drake is obviously out of place, he's a little bit quiet, too. But, they still talk. And so this is where you see that Nolus and Mercer, they're very strong brothers. They have this strong friendship about them. They're eating, they're talking about glorious stories and funny things that they've done. And in all, Nolus is like the fun uncle, So he's the fun uncle, very not serious, whereas Mercer, he's a little bit more serious, but still knows how to joke around. He's very, I'd say, middle ground. He's a father, but he's also a friend. And so you have this conversation going on, and then this is when Mercer kind of reveals a little bit again about his story, is he talks about the idea that he made a promise. And again, this is all backstory to Mercer, because again, Mercer is an important character and he has his own story. He made a promise to one of his friends during his story that he would care for the orphans. And his friend was one of the few that died during the whole battle. And so Mercer kind of takes this as an opportunity to fulfill that promise, and he asks Drake to stay. And of course, it's not like, oh, you're going to just be my son. Rather, it's more like you're going to be, just here and you're going to earn your keep kind of thing. But then again, he's supposed to just stay as a guest. So again, he's not some servant or whatever. And of course, Drake accepts. Now, this would pretty much finish chapter 1, if I would be specific. But I did get a little bit long-winded with backstory. And so I'll just end it right there, with the establishing of Nolus, Mercer, Sophis, Drake, Exion, and, this little family dynamic. And obviously Sophis, he's more like the, I guess I call him the stubborn mule. The way I describe it is he's very, he's not evil, he's just, strict, stern, like this really hard-as-nails grandpa, that has his own ways, very kind of militaristic. And again, he's the advisor. It kind of makes sense that he would, be stern as such. But yeah, this is supposed to be the feast, to celebrate Exchange Day. Mercer talks a little bit about his wife, but you can see he's obviously a little bit, he obviously still loves her. And you can see that because he only has one son, and he, hasn't married yet. There's obviously not another mistress or anything. And so it shows that he really does care about her. He made a whole entire holiday after her, and so on. And so this is, again, a chapter that's supposed to establish all these relationships very quickly. And that'll be it for now.